Hi, this is Kelly. Welcome to my channel and welcome to my Dark Gingerbread Series. This is part 2 of the GingerDEAD. I got such a good response from you guys on part 1. DIY number 1, Cinder and Cinnamon. So I got this little table decor piece shaped like a tombstone from Dollar General. Always check their clearance on this stuff and the BOGOs. They come in handy for so many different things, all these little signs. And the prices have gone up. They were $1 forever, and now some of them are $2. Some of them are still $1, but... And I just scraped all that paper off of the front, give it a little sanding. And once you paint it, it's just going to soak all that up. It's fine to leave it on there. You can wet it and get it off if you want, but I don't bother, because I never have a problem with it. So I'm going to paint this entire thing black. And I also have this little coffin I got from Michael's. And I'm going to take these big gaudy hinges and clasp off of it. And I do paint this entire thing, but I only end up using the bottom piece. I didn't need the top piece, it just made it too tall. And I also gave that a nice coat of black paint. Now I'm going to take some black paint and mix with some baking soda, equal parts. Mix it really well. If it seems too thick and gummy, just add a little more paint. And I'm going to take my sponge dabber here, and I'm just going to dab all that texture all over this tombstone. I couldn't find my bigger dabber. I finally found it after these projects were done. I was like, really? Anyway, but it's all good. I have some sponges I also use. You can use an old paintbrush, but you want to dab it, not brush it. Now I've got my Folk Art Cinnamon, my new favorite paint. It looks just like gingerbread. And I am going to take this sponge and dab it all over, making sure it's a little heavier on the edges. And I want it to look like gingerbread, but with that black showing through. And we're doing the same with the coffin. And you see I have both pieces, and like I said, that's the top I'm working on there. But I do the same to the bottom, and that's the piece I end up using. So I took this little mini grapevine wreath and painted it, spray painted it black. And that's going to be placed on top of the coffin. I got these little pearl beads. And this is just fishing line. And I'm going to put, when you're doing this, on my table that's white, I can't see. So I thought I'd put a piece of black felt under it. Maybe I do here in a minute. But if you're working with something like this, get something dark underneath where you're working so you can see the string. So I managed to get 3 on there. There we go. And I'm going to tie a knot just to kind of cluster them together. And I'm going to tie this like 4 times. And again, it's hard to hold on to. It's slippery. It's really skinny. It's hard to see, but that's okay. So now I'm going to take this. This is just some Dollar General metallic little paint kit I bought. And this is the silver. And it just gives such a really pretty shimmer. And I hit the pearls with it, and I'm going to hit this little wreath with it here and there. And then these little roses I made with a silicone icing mold and hot glue. Spray painted those black as well, and also dabbed that silver. So now with my little wreath, I run the string through and tie it in the back. And I'm also going to add a little hot glue to and there. Now I have the felt underneath so I can see the string. That's where I did. I knew I did it at some point. So once they're tied to it, I add a little hot glue to hold them in place. And I've just got this little piece of lace ribbon, and I just shaped it like an awareness ribbon. And when you're working with tiny stuff like this, it's such... Be patient. And we're going to hot glue that down. And then one of my little roses that are made of hot glue, I'm basically going to melt the back more than I'm going to add glue. I'm going to add a tiny bit of glue, but you want to kind of melt it and reactivate it. And there's my little wreath. So now I'm just going to hot glue that to the top of the little coffin. Now these are like, you know, kind of dark and gothic, but they turn out so beautiful. This is so much fun to do. Now here I've got a Dollar Tree cutting board, And I'm going to show you what I did. I'd end up using something smaller, but I'd do the exact same thing. So I already painted a coat of black on and let it dry. And then I paint, not a full coat, just kind of here and there. Spread a little paint on there and sprinkle my cinnamon while the paint's wet. And then you just put that aside. I usually let this dry about an hour or so. And just to make sure. It's going to dry quick. It's chalk paint plus that cinnamon. It's going to dry quick, but I give it an hour. Then I gently brush off the excess. And then once you do that, you just blow on it a couple times to get rid of the rest. And this is just a piece of scrap wood that I sanded the edges rounded to make a base for the tombstone. And combination of E6000 and hot glue to get this on the base. That stuff's so gunky. And I saved a spot on each end for the hot glue so that it can attach instantly. And I've got these other pieces of this grapevine wreath that I cinched together and pulled apart that I also spray painted black, and I'm dabbing the silver. And I've got this other curly Q piece. I'm just painting that black by hand, and I'll also dab that with silver. And I'm going to glue that little squiggly piece to the coffin so it looks like there's a vine kind of growing up from under it and wrapping around it. Glue that other edge down to the side there. And then basically I just kept working with it until I trained it. Just be careful not to break it if you do something like this, because I want it to look like it's growing up the side of it and over the arch. And I just took a piece of floral wire and wrapped it around to cinch it all together in one spot. And that kind of shows, so we're going to kind of cover that up with a rose later. And we get it glued in place. Now I'm worried about this thing popping loose, which it might down the road. But that's okay. It looks so far so good. It seems to be holding, but I'm just going to add glue and a couple of contact points to hold that in place on top of my tombstone here. And it doesn't have to be like perfect or, well, I mean, it's supposed to look natural, you know. So later on that side where it's kind of pudging out, I do glue it down a little flatter. I got that little cross from Hobby Lobby. It was a tree ornament, and I just snipped off the little hoopty on the top and dry brushed that black, and that's going to go in the center. And here's some more of my glue, hot glue roses. And I put the biggest one where it's over the edge to hide where I have that wire holding the grapevine together. And I think I have 5 of them, and I go from largest to smallest around the archway. And again, we're melting the back. We're adding a tiny bit of glue, but we're mostly melting the back to reactivate. Now I've got the roses on, and I'm just going to hot glue my cross on here. I didn't see any reason to do much to the cross. The color of it was great, that darker gold. And I just toned it down with a little bit of the black, and there we go. My tombstone's done. They turned out so pretty. So here's a piece I end up using. I'm just showing you. That's what I end up using for my base. And we're just going to do the same thing I showed you earlier on the cutting board. There you go. With just some cinnamon kind of not quite covering it. It was just too much empty space on the bigger one. So this is just a Jenga block. I painted black. And we're going to use the E6000 and hot glue combination. This is going to prop up the coffin a little bit so it's not just laying flat. And we're gonna hide that with some moss, but I wanted to paint it black so it's a little more camouflaged. And then the same thing, I'm gonna use E6000 on the one that's open in the back. It only has a small edge to glue it to. And then again, E6000 hot glue for the tombstone. Get that in place. And now I've got some black Spanish moss. And I'm going to put a little bit at the base of the tombstone. I had some glue showing. I wanted to make sure I hid that. And then again, we're gonna hide the Jenga block on both sides with a little moss. And I don't want to completely cover the bottom. I'm going to add the grapevine, some more grapevine pieces that I painted. There we go. And I'm just kind of trying to figure out where they're going to lay. And I don't glue those pieces because that just makes a mess. You're just going to have glue all in your moss, and it's just going to you try to pull out a glue string and it pulls everything off your project. Yeah, so I just tucked them in there between the moss. And Cinder and Cinnamon is complete. Oh, it turned out so pretty. I just love it. Love it. DIY number 2, the spiced skull. Yes, I'm going to gingerbread a skull. How fun. So I took the jaw off to make it a little easier and just put a coat of black paint on everything. That's black, rich black chalk paint. And first of all, we're going to do the nasal cavities and the eyes with some black flocking powder. So I've got a tiny brush and we're going to dab some paint in the nose there and sprinkle that flocking on the wet paint. Tap it in around, tap off the excess, and then do the same with the eyes. I've got all kinds of flocking powder. I've been trying to come up with more projects to use more of it, but I'll get there. And a little bit seems to go a long way. You gotta, put something underneath to capture it so you can return it to the container. So get both eyes done in the nose, and we're going to let that dry for a while before we start the gingerbread. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with the jaw here, and I'm going to coat that entire thing except for where I'm holding it with another coat of black paint, and while it's wet we're going to douse it in cinnamon. And later I'll go back and do the inside as well, but you don't really have to. And I'm just going to set it right in that pile of cinnamon to dry. So now my skull has been drying for a while. We're going to take a tiny brush and we're going to gingerbread the face first, because there's some spot, like the little piece between the nasal cavities and up against where you have that flocking, because you don't want to get the paint in your flocking if you can help it, or not too much into it. You don't want to mess up what you've done. And then we're going to sprinkle the cinnamon over the nose. And just gently tap that off. And we're just going to go around the eyes, and we also use that little brush to do in all those smaller crevices, and do these first. Now, where you stop and restart, like you put the cinnamon on and then you have to get paint up against it, it's going to show, but we're gonna dab some metallics all over it later, so it doesn't really matter. So with something like this skull, you kind of have to do it in sections. You've got to hold on to it somewhere. So here I've done about 2/3 of the skull the same way I did the jaw, and I let it dry for an hour, and I'm gently brushing the excess off. So here we have the rest is still showing, and we're going to try to get the paint up against the cinnamon without messing it up too much, and without you just don't want it clumpy. If it's not clumpy, you don't worry about it. And we douse that wet paint with the cinnamon. Thank you guys so much for being here with me today. I hope you're enjoying my Dark Gingerbread series. I'm going to have some more beautiful, they'll be gothic and dark, but less macabre next week. I'm going to do some ornaments. So I've done the jaw already, and I've got this metallic folk art. It's called Rich Espresso or Dark Espresso. And I'm going to take my chip brush, and I'm just going to pounce the paint into the brush, and then just pounce the paint onto the skull. And we're going to do the large areas with this bigger brush. And you see that, how it's splotchy. It's kind of like there's bigger patches of paint here and there and smaller patches, and it's a really pretty look. And then a tiny brush to do the small areas of the face. And then just keep on dabbing until you get the look you want. And look how cool that is. Isn't he cool? I just love how it turned out. So I've got this little decor piece left over from Easter from Dollar General, and I thought the shape of it looked kind of like a cookie, so I rolled with it. And we're going to paint that entire thing with a coat of black paint, and then we're going to take our cinnamon, folk art cinnamon matte paint, equal parts that and baking soda. Mix that really well, and then mix together. Make sure it's not too thick and pasty. You can add more paint if it's too thick Take my sponge, and we're just going to sponge this texture paint all over my little cookie. I do the sides. I don't worry about getting it in those little crevices because, you know, I want the black to show a little bit anyway. So, and then we're going to dab it on the top, and I want it heavy, but again with the black showing through just a little bit. Give it that nice gingerbread color and texture there. And we're going to let that dry. So I have this little candle stand I'd use for something else and textured with tissue paper, and I just repainted it black, and we're going to dry brush the cinnamon color all around it just to pick up that texture and give it the little touch of gingerbread color. You can use any kind of candle stand or not. You can just use the base on its own. But I just wanted it to kind of stand up a little bit. Little piece of scrap wood hot glued inside there to fill in the gap so my cookie makes contact better than just trying to glue it to those edges. A nice healthy dose of hot glue there. And glue that to the bottom of my base. Take our skull, figure out where we're going to place him, and hot glue him in place. And I put a nice blob on the spot where it's going to make contact in the back, and then just carefully come from the inside towards the outside and get a little bit of glue on the bottom of that jaw. Get him glued down. And I've got this brown Excelsior here. Just wanted to give it a little something something. Tiny bit of glue kind of underneath the side of the, behind the jaw. We've got a little space there to fill. And the same on the other side. And here we have the spiced skull. He's awesome. And here's my reveal. My little graveyard scene. The little, it's hard to see the little vines, but they really brought something to the party. It really made all the difference. And my little spiced skull. Thanks again for being here with me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and share and all the things. Bye.